Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Collective. We have another fantastic show. While Jeff fixes his camera, this is a whole new setup for him,
New
so he's
toys.
very excited and he's playing with it. It's a new toy.
Nice.
Yeah, I
It's
got
pretty cool.
this thing.
He's just got the
It's
boom.
not the Shore level mics that you guys
Bro,
have.
don't
but
even.
I'm just saying, you know what they should do is get the actual foam overlap that's cylindrical like yours, so we can have at least the Kmart knockoff version of your guys' mics.
Yeah, that's right. But what you do have going for you that I do like is down from the mic, you've got all sorts of little springy parts coming off it, and it's looking like
shock absorbery.
Yeah, it's looking very Joe Rogan setup there with all that shock absorption.
To match what you said earlier, and actually to pimp what you said earlier about Shaun is like, don't go to the people and emulate the greatness they do. I'll look at other people's stuff. I'm like, all right, so order a Shure microphone. Right. I don't know what this means.
MV1, whatever that means.
I don't know what I'm doing, but it sounds good on their end. So
that's right.
Right off the back of other greats.
These are great mics. So if you do,
you can tell by the price.
that's the trick, isn't it?
You get what you pay for.
You kind of do. You kind of do.
Yeah, like I ordered tomorrow because I always have to take these recessed lights and yank them out of the ceiling and jack them into the back so you guys don't have all these white halos. And Betty comes downstairs because I'll forget, and I'm OCD, and this is our gym. And she's like, I got to reach up there and plug all these back in after every one of your podcasts. So I bought all these rechargeable wall sconces tomorrow. They'll be in here.
Nice.
Put them over the flags, and I'm going to Joe Rogan the hell out of this backdrop.
Why not?
I like it.
Why not?
Polish that turd, right?
But why not?
That's what I agree.
Give me a good reason why not. Has anyone got a good reason?
I don't.
No. What holds people back from doing exactly what you're just talking about right now?
I think for me, instinctively, people sometimes will be questionable about the finances. But at the end of the day, did someone just go eat a $30 pizza?
That's right. That's how I think. Yeah.
So, or, people use Starbucks as an example. Like you want to buy an $8 Starbucks, but you won't get a $6 salad,
Right.
The sad part is that $8 coffee is disgusting.
I do not like Starbucks coffee.
No, neither do I.
It tastes, it's bitter. It's bitter tasting bitter.
Yeah. Well, since Shaun has gotten me on coffee and different extraction methods and different styles, different flavors and all these things, every so often I'll go and get like a caramel Corretto or something like that. Not from Starbucks, but it's like a punch in the face of just straight sugar. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want these anymore. And I haven't had one in months now. And I used to do it every, 2, 3, 4 weeks kind of thing. And now it's just like, meh.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Why did you do it? Was it did you categorize it as a treat? Did you categorize it as I haven't done that in a while? How did you categorize it?
It was like a treat. It was I've been doing really well. I've been working out. I'm doing all these things. I'm going to treat myself to something sweet because I had a bit of a sweet tooth. Yeah. And I say had because it disappeared in the last year or so. I just don't crave the sugar as much as I think it's since I started.
If it was protein related, eat protein more protein, for sure. Eat less sugar.
It's helped.
Yeah,
for sure.
I bet it did.
And I think since I've taken more control of what I eat, similar to the fact that being on the show and not swearing on the show, I don't swear anywhere near as much in life in general now.
Good point.
And I actually find it almost disconcerting when others are swearing up a storm around me, and it's just kind of off-putting. I don't.
Yeah.
As much as I love it.
Yeah.
As much as in my head right now, I've got swears going on. But I don't say them out loud.
I just want to hear your inner monologue 24/7.
I don't even like hearing my own monologue. So when I do hear some podcasts that I track, when I hear them launch into just standard issue military swearing, it is a bit off-putting. Yeah. And it actually, as much as I get it, and I don't want to be all judgmental, but it kind of diminishes the level of professionalism to some degree with the message that's being put across.
100%. I've been kind of turned off to it. I think as we've got saturated with podcasts and motivational speakers or cool memes or whatever the crap they put out there, you become our almost like our litmus test of quality. Now we're like, okay, now we actually have seen good, bad, and ugly. Now we actually have elevated our standards. It's I'm the same way. I want to not go through these jaded eyes, but I get really put off by like the type A badass lion t-shirt wearing motivational, like swear word off your butt, swear word. I'm like, oh, that never worked for me in basic training. Like getting that yelling thing. It works for some audiences, but it's to the point, like you said, I can't see through the lack of professionalism. I don't look at that as a professional.
That's
a good point.
But not in the higher than thou sense. It just doesn't work for me.
It doesn't work for me at all. In fact, it's way worse than that. Not only does it not work for me, it puts me off.
100%.
It pushes me backwards away from what's going on. So it's not a case of I look at it and think, that's kind of, I'm not into it. I look at it and I start swerving around it.
Yeah.
And so if I'm just walking past it casually, that's a whole different thing than swerving way away from it. And then I establish that delivery of message or that information that could have been fantastic. I then, on a big swerve, I establish it as I ain't going back there. Yeah. If it's a big swerve, I ain't interested in revisiting it next week. I might not revisit it for a year just to see if that guy or girl has squared themselves up and professionalized up and worked through all of the stuff that they've had to work through, like I've had to work through, like we all have to work through in order to get to a point where we can, to some degree, be reasonably balanced in front of a microphone.
In theory. Yeah. I mean, it all goes back to, we all talk about like infantrymen and the F word is like their catch-all word. And yeah, it is, but it also, I don't know. If I do something, I want it to motivate a mother character, her kid, if she happens to be listening, or some type A alpha soldier type, and I don't want to alienate an audience. Like you said, that being swerving away from it actively, it's like the difference between like an agnostic motivation-y listener and an atheist. Like I am against that.
Yeah, sure.
Now. Like I'm not just like casually agnostic with it. I'm actually atheist towards their message.
Yeah, man.
It's just like doesn't work. I think it's just because the quality of stuff that's out there. Brady and I are listening to Russell Brand, and it's funny because he's such a foul-mouthed guy in all his movies, and he's a big druggie in all his movies, but he's cleaned himself up. And if you can slow him down by like 50%, he actually speaks quite eloquently. And
he can.
He can if he wants to be, depending on the
and
topic.
He could.
Yes,
but he doesn't.
Yes, that's what's
not in my opinion, and that's why I can't listen to him.
Yeah, that's what's fascinating is he was taught. It depends on his tirade. Is definitely a we listen to him on other people's show. I couldn't listen to him daily on his own show.
Yeah. Well, you raise a point that I think is critical, and I'm pretty sure that if him and I were sitting down, he'd have to adjust the way he communicates with me because I wouldn't put up with it. Like I would push back.
God, I want to
and so I'd love to sit down and have a combo with him. Maybe not in front of the world, but have a combo with him on a park bench and get that guy to reduce his ego, slow down his thought process, and deliver stuff that is tangibly good rather than just yelling a lot really fast. So I think he'd be a cool guy to talk to, but he needs
Betty and I thought our
pushback.
Yeah, Betty and I thought we actually hit the speed up button on the podcast. You can actually change the rate. We're like, wait, Joe Rogan sounds stoned and slow, but why is Russell Brand sound like he's coked out and on 1.5 speed?
But it's a big deal though to really understand not only what you are, what you enjoy, what you actually can handle, but also push your boundaries a little bit. And the thing about swearing, at least now I've been able to look at it a little bit different, is that swearing used to be like a punctuation.
It did.
Like it was a way to emphasize something in some way,
good or bad.
And now it's just all the time. So there's no emphasis, and it's very similar to culturally. Actually, if you look at it, is that the culture of outrage, right? Is that every next person has to be more outrageous and the more outrageous and more outrageous. And then you get to a point where everybody's just being outrageous all the freaking time. Yeah. And it dilutes the purpose of it. And then you've lost the message. I listened to this great podcast a while ago about the civil rights movement down in the States in the 60s. And they were saying that, a lot of the groups started as nonviolent, peaceful protests, and we're just here to like use the system. We're gonna
make people aware.
Right? And then it would, in order to get your message across, you had to yell louder than the guy next to you, and that became even more. Now you have to make more of a statement. People need to be able to, we have to make them listen, and then it becomes
get bigger placards.
Exactly, and then it just ratchets up until the point that near the end of the movement in like the mid 70s, it basically terrorist organizations, right? Like just jumped all the way up.
I don't know about you guys, but like if my dad, if he constantly yelled at me, it would have just become white noise. Or like if you're training a dog, even like, or anything like that. I don't have kids, but if you just constantly have that, if you're always at an 11, they'll get numb to that, but if dad went to an 11 and his normal was at 1, I was like, this is for real. Like this is the time to pay attention. And it's the society we live in. The media we're bombarded with, you have to be loud.
So you had been describing the general person out there as an internet celebrity, Jeff, who is a yeller or swears a lot. And there's a guy, I don't know what his name is, but his image flashed into my mind's eye. And I can see him right now in front of a microphone, and he gets all red-faced.
Portly fellow?
Who?
Is he a portly fellow? Like he's kind of chubby, fat, gets all
he's a bit stocky. You know what it looks like? He spends more time yelling in the gym than actually working out in the gym. And so he's behind the microphone, he's getting all large and in charge, and he gets all red-faced, and he's doing his whole he's mega alpha male, and every fourth word or fifth word is the F-bomb. And all I see in that moment is a guy who ain't working hard enough. Because if you're working hard, you can just and I'm not saying slump in your chair, but you can just chillax and deliver whatever you've got to say and not get all super freak about it with F-bombs. Because to me, what that starts indicating is someone who isn't doing the work. They're substituting emotion for action.
Well, I get to this point now, and I've genuinely said this to Betty, where I almost want to, I'm revealing my trick. I do almost like a mockumentary style of motivational clips, adhering to all these cliches and actually just seeing almost like a social experiment if they work. Like if I make a black and white video with like a high contrast thing, and I'm yelling and I'm trying to get neck veins and I'm screaming and every other F word is this, and I relate, like, God bless them, there's a handful of like physical fitness people that they're always talking about, come to my arena or be willing to die. I'm like, you're deadlifting, dude. I respect it, but
bro, you're just putting chalk on your hands.
You're not taking on enemy fire.
You're not taking souls. You're just wasting chalk and talking.
And I want to do that and just see like the social experimentation of the hits you get, and it's like that could actually speak volumes. It's in this Kardashian world of, is that working for some reason, that like we could just yell, like you said, and do more yelling in the gym? And if people are like, I'm with you, and I'm like, I'm just yelling loud words in a microphone in a black and white video, do what I say, and then edit it cool. And
some mock lightning in the back for sure.
The
soundtrack. What I do see as an issue is guys like yourself, Jeff, who've got experience, background, and have done some things in the world that are notable. There's no need for you to yell, but how do you get your message out there on, the good Jeff Bosley wisdom, if you're not waving some sort of a flag nowadays and yelling? It sucks, but the only way forward is kind of what we're doing right now, is just not full chillaxing, but we're just trying to do our thing without yelling. It just takes way longer. But I'm okay with that, man. I'm okay with that.
Buddhist Yoda, quiet, calm confidence that'll rise to the top of the soup, if you will.
Eventually.
Screaming and yelling, it's going to eventually, I don't know, I'll dime it out. The person I'm thinking of is the first form guy. I love him or hate him, but I'm like, all right, you're a successful supplement guy. You have,
I have seen him. Yeah.
Shut up. It's like when I hear about The Rock and $7 Productions and all this, I'm like, I'm not receptive to just the halftime football coach thing, because that acute solution or acute perceived solutions don't solve this big chronic motivation need,
Correct.
There's I was picturing you doing this motivational video of you screaming and telling people to get to work while you're sitting there washing dishes and being like,
I should totally do it, just like a SNL satire, and just actually take it seriously and just see what happens. Like,
have you
you're
thought
not
about
online unless you're washing the dishes by hand.
Exactly.
Have you thought about actually doing it?
Now I kind of probably have to because of this.
You probably have to.
Yeah. Now it's out there. It's going to happen.
I might have to. I already got to go back to BJJ based on what you said. The only reason I didn't do it, Shaun, is because I was listening to your live, or I would have shut it down and done it. So I was like, I got to get back to that. He's speaking to me.
I kind of am. It's kind of too late for you now to sort of backstep. Yeah. I mean, you've kind of put the idea out. It's a good idea. And what I was thinking of as you were describing it is, of course, we had Mandatory Fun Day on the podcast. How many days ago was that, Chance?
I think it was last week, maybe 4 or 5 days ago.
I'll watch one of the clips and figure that out.
Yeah.
So within the week, we've had him on. And just like you, maybe he had the same kind of, maybe one day I'll ... But he did do it. Yeah. If he wouldn't have done it, it would have sucked. We would have missed out on a streak of humor. But his growth has been not quite exponential, but it's certainly been fiery. And it's impressive. And it not only is it impressive, it should be inspiring to someone like yourself when these kind of ideas pop up. The only thing you've got left at this point is, it won't work.
Yeah.
But you won't know until you give it a go, right?
Yeah, you're 100% right. What I think you're saying, it was something you said today on your thing. It's always easier. No, not you. It's something else I watched last night. I'm a little overloaded on a few things, but they're talking about it's easy to like coach versus being coached with your own advice. You're not necessarily an a-hole hypocrite, but sometimes it's easier to like throw out that here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to do. Oh, I just said, here's what you need to do to 10 people. I'm number 11. I'm tired.
That's the external proxy right there.
Here's my distraction. Here's my excuse. The very thing that makes you situationally a hypocrite.
Yeah.
We've talked about that a couple times in regards to me specificui.
We're keeping you accountable for your shave.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. I'm going to get to that in a second. But yeah, before we go any further, we've 17 minutes now of just kind of shooting. But I do want to remind everybody, like the show, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You're good to go. But on top of that, I got a ton of comments already.
Okay.
So
so Jeff distracted us. Sorry, Chance.
Totally. Sorry. All your fault, Jeff. You're not allowed back on the show.
I saw a pen line a squirrel in here.
But I do want to just hit these because they're important. Daniel says, reminder that there is a vote to have Chance shave his beard and head for charity.
I vote I vote yes.
Already more than $40 are committed to the cause.
100%. There's way more than 40 already being committed.
There was quite amazing. A bit on the old IG there.
I have several hundred already.
I already took that like almost really dismissive or almost insulting, because now there's a value to your facial hair and your head hair, and currently it's only $40. It's not like it's Metallica and it's worth $300.
That's right.
Like,
well, it's okay. My wife.
Sorry to shoot you down.
No, it's all good.
Really, your beard's only worth $40.
Amber was listening to it earlier with me, and I was kind of joking. I was like, the people on the collective apparently want me to shave my beard. And she was like, it's kind of insulting. For like 11 years, I've been telling you to shave it, and now you're going to do it for these guys? And I was like,
well, it's a charity, honey.
That's a guy charity. Thing. Like, wait, they said they'd give me $40.
That's
$40, right?
That's right.
Exactly. $40.
It kind of is a bit of a guy thing, though.
Yeah, I dare you. Well, I would have done it for free.
That's right. That's right.
Hair was the reason.
So Daniel says he votes in favor of the shave. All good there. Chance for clean shaven Prez. Good to go. Satch is in with the good morning team. Good to see you, Robert Murray. Morning all. Jasso's got the good morning Satch. Seb jumps in here. Seb, always good to see you. Everyone's a motivational speaker until adversity separates the wheat from the chaff.
True words.
And then there's a whole bunch of chirping back and forth here, but Seb says, hi boys. Satch goes to Chance. How long you had that grotesque beard anyway? And I will tell you, it has been since I left the military. This has not left me. I have, as soon as I got out, I started growing one, and it hasn't been this long since I've left the military, but I've always had at least the chin.
Get rid of it.
Like Oh no, I don't know. And then Winter
What are you
Storm.
even talking about? You don't
good morning.
Know. What are you talking about?
Of course, I'm going to do it. Just tell me where to send the monies. There you go.
That's right.
Awesome.
And then we got Winter Storm. How much for Shaun to tier 1 shave chance using scissors only?
Dull scissors, by the way.
Dull scissors.
All patchy.
So, you know what? I'm down. Let's raise some money. I'm good to it.
Agreed. Here's the best part, though. This is literally the best part. While you have taken ownership of stepping up and engaging in a charitable event, you get to organize your own charitable event. How fun is that? That's so fun, bro.
That's pretty
get
pure.
Your poll going, get your fun going, get your charity going. Dude, it's so fun.
So much focus on your body hair.
It's not even the body hair that bothers me. Oh, there you go. Daniel says, pluck one hair at a time.
You need to up your price.
Oh yeah, my price would go up for that one.
$1 per hair.
Oh, there you go. That would raise a good amount of money. And the funny thing is that I've done some fundraising before. I've done some stuff.
That's why it's going to be so fun for you.
Yep, super fun times again. Hooray! As you can say.
I'm impressed your better half has not put up a. Well, maybe she has, but
maybe she should put up $50.
A pretty well, no, I mean like pretty good psyops campaign for like the last since you've been out of the military.
Oh yeah, she's been trying. She's been trying.
Apparently, who's more stubborn, you or her?
Well, we'll know if she's really trying hard if she throws up $50 for you to buzz down that rat tail.
Down the marital gauntlet, right there.
The funny thing is that it's the same bank account, right?
well, that's great because then you'll know how much she donated.
It's true. It's like, did you guys ever watch Modern Family, where there's the older guy, the Al Bundy guy, and his really like hot younger like Puerto Rican wife or whatever, and he's rich because of his business and
Modern Family.
She bought him a like gift, and he's like, I appreciate the thought, but I just bought me my own gift. And like, she's like, I'm flying the whole family to Hawaii. She's like, he's like, I'm flying the whole family to Hawaii.
Well, when your accounts are the same, I guess they're just the same. You just got to take it with that.
You're paying yourself to shave your face.
Yeah. Satch says send the money raised to kids with cancer. I think that's a pretty good thing. But you know what? I'm going to
pick your own charity, man.
I'm going to set up a poll. And you know what?
Where that was already stated.
Yeah, in
my live chat, that's done.
Well, I'm just reiterating the fact that I'm going to set up a poll to see how many people want to shave, how many people want to keep it, and then B, to whom money's raised would go to.
Do you have a St. Jude's in where you're at? Are they out where you're at?
Jude's?
That's where I was gonna. That's the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. I think they're just U.S. based.
We have the Stollery Kids Hospital here, so I mean. It's a kids hospital, though. Same kind of deal.
Can't go wrong.
Do you have a charity in mind yet, Chance?
Not off the top of my head. I'm considering it deeply because if I'm going to do it, I want to make sure it's done right.
See what's been happening. Plant. God.
Look at this.
Peck at the breadcrumbs.
Hey, man.
These are how things become real, though.
It's true. Absolutely.
It's true.
This is how it always starts off as kind of a laugh and start with an idea and ha, this would be great if it did happen. And then why isn't it happening?
Well, no, hang on a sec. You say this is how it always happens. This is not how it always happens. This is how this one is happening.
True.
Because from the start, it's been shaped to get to this point. And so if someone or the parties involved, and to include all of the commenters that jumped on this like a hot potato, the idea being that this was shaped, not just happenstance. It was created to get to this point. And so that requires everyone in the game to be paying attention to the game and having fun within the game to get to a point like we're at right now. It just doesn't happen.
That's true. That's true. It just doesn't happen. You're absolutely right. We do have a couple more comments here. Everybody wants to get in on this conversation. So Chris K says, what did the horse say to Chance? Why the long face?
These are painful. That's a dad joke.
It's pretty good. Robbo Murray says, love that guy. It's been a minute since I've talked to him. I'm not sure who he's talking about, but either way.
But he loves him.
He loves him. Glenn. Shaun shaving Chance. I immediately got an image of Swayze and more in the Potter scene.
Bro. I just went
from the back around the front of your
I just went, everybody was kung fu fighting full tilt in my head in order to scrub that image out. All I can hear right now is
there's not enough ocular bleach to point into my face.
That's all I can hear right now.
I'm not taking that. I'm not taking it down. That's
Take
just
it
going to sit here
because I'll just keep playing. Everybody was kung fu fighting.
But we have an unrelated, so I want to hit this because this is important. Tanya, unrelated. I've heard acting involves disassociating and no sense of self to be immersed in the scene. SF folks, Shaun, seem to be unabashedly themselves. How do you reconcile / use both to your advantage? I think that's an excellent question.
That's a great
and I wanted to bring it forward. Jeff, what do you think?
I'm rereading that. So unrelated, I've heard acting involves. Tanya, that's an awesome question. Thanks for getting us away from Chance's facial hair.
I do appreciate it.
Show, but I wouldn't want a 60-minute, hair chat with Jeff Chance on. I think it's all your style, if you will. I know a lot of people get like artsy fartsy and really almost like pompous about like, I'm a method actor. I was in the school of blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I firmly believe we're portraying real people. Even if you're portraying Captain America here, I say you take what you have, because that's the only way you're going to portray an accurate portrayal, or at least a portrayal, even if it's a fictional made up character that is somewhat something we can all want to watch and listen to. If you get so far fetched and become so dissociated, you're now alien. You're alienating the people watching the performance and all that. So I say, and it's a big method actor thing, not the crap you hear about like Jared Leto and all the negative method acting crap you see on social media. True method acting. It's actually taking a toolbox of experiences, and I'm really winded because I'm excited about this. Taking that toolbox of experiences and like using those little pieces of tools for bigger things. So this is a horrible, horrible metaphor, but it's highly accurate. I am very fortunate to have never had the mind frame to, in the real world, be a rapist. This is really dark, and I'm sorry, but it goes somewhere artistically. However, if you do the psychological study of those evil people, a lot of it's over power and control. There's not a sexual deviant aspect to it. Guys like us, I would think, we like being in control. I loved being in charge of a platoon or a team more than I liked being led. So I can extrapolate that little tool into my method actor toolbox and go, what was it like when I wanted to be powerful or in charge of something? Right. And then that's where the artistic creative process needs to extrapolate and create the from the air. But those toolboxes, if I got to go play a Green Beret movie, no method acting. I just kind of phone it in, have my cup of coffee and call it a day. But God forbid, if I had to audition to play, God, it was horrendous, a sexual predator to a daughter. And I have no,
dude, that's bananas.
I got nothing. I got nothing to attach to. So I just was grasping on power and even like the most minutia thing of like, I really am passionate about the people I love in a healthy way, but what happens if that spiraled? And then obviously you just make choices, and then that's definitely where you dissociate. I don't know what it's like to be that guy. So whatever works for you that makes the audience want to watch you. That's my shortest version of that. Some people love it to be method acting. Some people that's a little bit too intimate and like almost, it shouldn't be therapeutic. If your acting is effing with your brain, you need to go to therapy before you play those characters.
Agreed. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. It's just, you're pretending. Kids do it all the time, believably. We don't need to make it too hard. If kids can do it, we can do it. We just need to kind of realize the thing that vibes for us. That's my long answer. Sorry.
No, that's great. I
love that stuff.
It reminds me, actually, we were talking about Dungeons and Dragons a little while ago, actually, on here. Shaun. No, like just like the game, like playing Dungeons and Dragons. It started by talking about the movie, but we were talking about the game itself. And I was saying that, it being able to play the game gives you the opportunity to kind of explore different facets of your life. Whereas a lot of players, when they first get started, just kind of play themselves.
Yeah.
But as you play longer and longer and longer, you play different characters, you play different styles. Yeah. And you kind of get to explore that. At one point, I was playing a character that was a slaver. I'm not a slaver by any means, right? But it was an interesting character to try and play and to try and think of that. And then, like, how would I react to certain situations if this was my mindset? And if I looked at people as property, how would I then, how would I interact with the world? And So I was going to ask you, is it a similar kind of effect when you're acting in front of a camera on stage? Is it the same kind of style?
I would think so. And I think there's a quote that's bastardized a lot, so I won't take credit for it, but it's living realistically in imagined circumstances. And so I don't know what it's like to be like, I would love to play the Punisher or Thomas Wayne, if you want to nerd out, the Thomas Wayne that actually is the altered Batman timeline that actually goes around with two hip holster pistols and kills.
That guy is wicked.
Yeah. And okay, so I don't know what it's like to be Batman in Gotham, but I do know what it's like to want to avenge people or like do the right thing for the little guy at all costs. And so that's living realistically, what I can take from that feeling. I don't have to go into my military career and applying it to a fake circumstance. And like you said, Chance, you don't know what it's like to be a slaver, like at all, but you can go, okay, well, realistically, how would I be? All right, now plug into this. And I think that's where you got to just let it go. I think that's why there's probably a drug and an emotional issue in that world, because it takes so much. If you take yourself so seriously, kids aren't having like psychotic breakdowns playing G.I. Joe in the sandbox.
Yeah.
Why, when we do it as adults, does it become some drug-riddled therapy searching creative process? And if it gets down that path, you need to check yourself.
I think maybe is this a possibility? So one of the things that bugs me about Hollywood is we'll take someone who's pretending to be a special forces soldier, and maybe it's Bruce Willis, whatever, a guy who is the furthest thing from special operations. And, they're trying to live that life, and there's so much dissonance with pretending to be something they absolutely know they're not capable of and who isn't them. And they have perhaps, because of their massive ego, believed that I don't have to take this seriously. I just got to pretend to be G.I. Joe again, though I know I'm not.
Yeah.
And because of that process of pretending to such a degree and not getting right with I'm just pretending throughout my entire life, that dissonance on a regular basis leads to some of the problems within Hollywood. Now, for me, I don't like movies that star actors that would suck in the actual world pretending to be that. Like if you want to carry all the knives in the world and now you're a mega knife fighter, Robert Downey Jr., how do you sleep at night thinking that you actually are that?
Yeah.
And there's a dissonance there, right?
That's a good way to put it. I think I 100% agree. And I think ignoring the business side of it, like, okay, will Bruce Willis playing an SF guy make people go to the theater? Yeah, because it's going to make money. So getting rid of that as the no duh answer, I think it comes down to the template of casting. You're not going to cast a skinny, emaciated 18-year-old as Thor, or you're not going to cast a non-whatever as Captain America or whatever, or a non-boxer as Rocky, whatever. So it's still, I think that should be part of it. As far as like, I'll never be that vet that says you should only cast vets to play military roles, because it's like, well, they could be a crappy actor though. Like, so just because they're a vet doesn't make them good at it. But would I cast the guy that happened to be a vet to play the vet? Yeah, that makes it that much better. So I agree with you. Like when you get to the point where dissonance is usurping realistic believability, you're losing it. I'm not going to see. Well, again, I always pimp this out, but Jack Reacher in the books is 6'6" tall.
Yeah.
If you knew the books, okay, yeah, it's Tom Cruise. He's a moneymaker, blah blah. But it's wrong casting. Like it's not dissonance. It's not ego. It was ego, obviously, but like, it's wrong casting. If Captain America showed up in the first Captain America movie as some emaciated like teen, we're like, no, these characters are basically our modern versions of gods. The old Greek gods. Like that's poor casting. And if that person can't carry themselves like a nurse, a doctor, a firefighter, I don't care what the role is. But yeah, when there's 0%, 100% dissonance and 0% possible like overlap, you are setting yourself up to do 99% pretend. Why not cast somebody that can bring a little bit to it from their realistic world? It just makes sense. Work resume, acting resume. That'd be awesome if the work resume actually could fill the acting resume.
That's why. So when we started off this podcast talking about how there's some folks out there that yell a lot, like with a lot of swearing on their podcast, and they get the veins on the side of their neck all pumped up, and it's hard for me to listen to it because it's too dissonant. Yeah. Like if you're so mega awesome, dude, sum up. Just be quiet for a while. We get it.
You're absolutely right.
And so I don't enjoy it, but I also, that carries over to Hollywood, where I'll say Robert Downey Jr. is the example. When he's acting, to me, all I see is a guy yelling and swearing with the veins on the side of his neck, acting out like trying to be mega alpha.
Yeah.
And he's not.
Yeah.
That's not. The thing. He'd blow over in a stiff wind.
Yeah, and that's the thing is it's hard. Yeah, like that's
hard.
I can't swallow. I can swallow him as a narcissistic billionaire playboy because if you see him in the real world and him playing Tony Stark, he's just playing himself in a Marvel.
Yeah. To some degree, you're right.
Casting. But like I was watching on Memorial Day, it's kind of a somber. I don't know about you guys, but I'll actually consciously watch like Black Hawk Down, We Were Soldiers. Like I'm not out
some of the best ones though.
Yeah, I'm not out to be sad, but I'm out to be like, hey, there are some people that have done some amazing thing that lost their lives. And the first one Betty and I watched was Black Hawk Down, and all the characters that played Delta at the time, I believably bought it because I might be biased, but they did their homework. I know they went down to 7th group at Fort Bragg and they did their little actor homework boot camp bull crap. But their physical type, they didn't look like Navy SEALs. They all were just like stocky farm boys. They all kind of had an attitude. So I think that's an example where it worked.
Oh,
obviously none of those actors had a remote overlap with that real world. But so that one
casting nailed it.
Yeah, they compensated. But if that were a modern day version where there are a lot of vets in the entertainment industry and they didn't have to have name brand actors, they could have crushed it even harder by just getting 5 or 6. They didn't have to be Delta guys. You could get 5 or 6 infantrymen. I'm not saying Delta's better than infantry, but just 5 or 6 infantrymen, Delta, SF, whatever you want. And there would be something there, like you're saying, Shaun, that you can't. The average movie civilian or military civilian wouldn't be able to place it, but they'd be like, yeah, I trust that guy.
You don't have to pin it down. As you're watching, you don't have to like nail it in your mind's eye. Oh, I see why this is believable.
But the average audience doesn't have to. But they'll see.
They can feel it. Yeah, they don't have to understand why, but they can feel it.
And that's where it should be. That's the ideal. That's the sweet spot.
It's funny that you guys mentioned this because Seb just jumped in with this comment. Shout out to Eric Bana
as
Black Hawk Down.
Dude, I was going to say it.
Yep. And then also shout out to Ridley Scott for wanting to get it right. And I think that's a big part of it, right? Is that we do have a couple more questions here, but I did want to hit on a point here was the fact that you guys are talking about dissonance. And I remember listening to a documentary and they were talking about the origins of CG in movies and why there aren't more straight CG movies with characters and like playing the straight up all the characters. And they came down to the fact that the more realistic you tried to make the CG for a person, the more your brain rejected it.
Exactly.
Because it was too perfect. It didn't have all of the idiosyncrasies, the small inflections of different stuff happening. Even though nowadays we could do it, we still have to do facial mapping.
Yeah.
And even then, they said that the farther away you went from humanistic features, the easier it was to believe. So like Avatar, you're extending a lot of the human features, but you're utilizing the human movements. So it becomes the dissonance kind of shrinks. But I just thought that was really interesting.
Whether it's CG or just the artsy fartsy side of it, this is like my soapbox is people need to go, whether it's Avatar, 1917, whatever feel good popcorn indie movie, like people go there to not think about is that they need to get lost in it, as cliche as that is. You need to get lost in Black Hawk Down, not go. Guys like us might be like, oh, cool. He has some trigger discipline. Thank God. But the average
change your mag, bro. Change your mag.
Exactly. My God, that's a big mag. But like most people, if they can just go and get lost in it, I can get lost watching Endgame because I know what I'm expecting. I don't go in and go, there aren't really aliens. I don't think this would be accurate. But I get lost in it. I can get lost in Rambo. I can get lost in Rocky. But if you're getting to the point, like you said, like that dissonance of like CGI, it looks weird. Like your brain Like, that's why I don't like high definition stuff. Like the high definition weather people, like when you're on the news and they've got it on HD now, they look like Johnny Cab from Total Recall. They look like this weird mono skin, like they look like those creepy sex robots you see in like China on like social media. Like they have a weird.
No, I haven't seen them. And
I don't know what you're talking about.
Google it. No, the only reason I know this is
hey man, I'm not judging. It's cool. It's cool.
I made that joke once, and somebody goes, "Ugh," and I was like, "Google sex robot," and it looks like every Instagram model out there. No disrespect to them, but they're so whitewashed and flat Botoxed and HD'd out. They look now cyborg. They look like Johnny Cab. And it's you're like I had chances you hit nailed on the head. You can't. The brain just doesn't compute that way.
Yeah,
I do have a thought on that, and I'm curious as to whether you've given this any thought, Jeff, or perhaps maybe it'll be a novel idea that we can go back and forth and see if there's anything to it. So, using Avatar as an example, how the audience, or I'll speak for myself as the audience member, as I watch Avatar. Because the avatar itself or the alien has been simplified to some degree. There's not a whole pile of facial minutia. There's not little poker tells that you're constantly searching for.
Yeah.
It's a relatively stable avatar, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And so once I establish the pattern on that thing, the trend of its movement patterns and its facial patterns, and this means that once I establish that very simple puzzle, which is made simple in CGI, then what I do, I address my bandwidth elsewhere. So now I've got a simple read on that, but I'm spending most of my bandwidth time focusing on the other minutia on the screen, the flying this, the leather that, the spear there, the fish jumping or whatever. And so what a simple CGI allows me to more richly observe the surrounding element, which then draws me into the movie to some degree. What do you think about that?
I agree, and I think it's like we talked just before we hit record, that Irishman movie on Netflix. They CGI'd young Pacino and those other three guys I forgot, and it didn't look right because they're trying to replicate one-to-one real. But like you're saying, you make something, we have no reference point in the real world for avatar alien creatures.
That's right.
So because we don't have that, we have no basis for comparison to bitch and moan and get lost in the minutia. And like you said, then you can look at you can start enjoying the world. You know, I don't look at Thanos and think Josh Brolin because I've never seen Thanos in real life, you know? And if they also, like you said, if they mask it, like what's that Ryan Reynolds movie, New Guy or?
Fun guy. Anyway, I know which one you mean.
Yeah. So you know, like the big bro version at the end, the big steroid guy.
Yeah.
Like that's Ryan Reynolds' face. But they did it so disconnected that I'm going to call it the avatar effect. We could avatar effect away from it and just kind of giggle at it. But they had enough Ryan Reynolds buried in there. But had they tried to do the Irishman cloning of Ryan Reynolds, we would be able to see it. It'd be Irishman, and we'd be like,
agreed.
And I think I talked to somebody about this yesterday on a nerd podcast, and I'm not being demeaning. It's literally called The Cultured Nerd.
Beauty.
The Crow, way back in the 90s, they used very crude.
Jason Lee, was it?
100% crude CGI, tons of crappy face replacement stuff that they now do commonplace now, and tricks and stuntman and doubles to finish that movie. But that worked because they weren't like, it was sleight of hand. Where now people like the movies like Irishman, it's the whole movie. You know, if you're gonna do sleight of hand, good on you. But the whole Irishman thing where I got to watch it for 2 hours and
I like that. Yeah.
It doesn't work for me, and that's just
me too.
It's cheap movie making. It's cheap entertainment. I think it's
agreed.
Free Guy is the name
Free
of the
Guy.
movie.
That's it.
Yeah.
Fun movie.
We do. Tanya hits us back with thank you. Also, see about the answer to her question earlier. Also seems that basic training and ethos of military involves shedding a sense of selfishness and replacing it with a sense of being in a collective. Yeah. Disassociating can be adaptive, it seems then.
Ooh, Shaun, I want to hear your thoughts on that for sure.
You know, it's a really good thought. And for me, I'll keep it super simple. And irrespective of when I learned this or how I learned it, through who or whatever, I suppose is unimportant. At a certain point, I just got right with being in a team and doing it for the team and forgetting a little bit about myself and focusing a little bit more on the larger group around me. And so disassociating, I don't think I disassociated per se. I always stayed focused on what's required of me within the team. And so if you disappear in the team and you don't think what is required of me, if you kind of become almost an automaton or a robot of disassociation of now you're like you're a victim to the universe, or now you're at the whim of something that you can't control. Now you don't have agency to some degree, and I'm extrapolating it out to a worst case scenario. Yeah. So I feel that for me, I never disassociated to adapt. What I did was I titled myself as being an integral part of the team, that I had to do my job, and whatever that was, I would do. And I was associated to the team, not associated to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think it's I agree with everything you said. And I think there's a hybrid, and obviously the big thing, this is mission dependent is the cliche thing to say here. But I think everything Shaun said, agreed. And then I just expand on it a little bit into a hybrid sense, possibly in the worst case scenario. Disassociating can be adaptive if, like, to go on what you're talking about, Shaun, earlier, a 3.7 mile ruck or a 37 mile ruck, and then keep rucking. That is a dissociation. You need to dissociate your poor me brain and keep going. And it's not I feel no pain. You're going to be aware of pain and suck, but you have to, to use your wording, dissociate from it, which is, to me, a temporary adaptation. You can't adapt the human body to just effortlessly walk 37 miles and just keep going. You can adapt your brain and obviously toughen your body to some level of resilience, but it's going to peak out. So to me, yeah, there's a dissociation, but to match what Shaun was saying, you don't dissociate from your team and lose your sense of self. Like you said, you're going to end up being Skynet. You know, I'd rather have the kid at least controlling the drone versus the drone thinking for itself, because it's the same sci-fi argument of like a pilot versus a computer. The computer might be more precise and analytical, but that human element, there's still something there. You know, a drone would shoot the sheep herder kid. The human has to take in the morals, the morale of it, or the ethics of it, you know? And if you get so selfless and in this weird cyborg identity, you're just a machine. And depending on your job, you're just a killing machine. And that's not what most of us signed up to be. And so it's ebb and flow. You know, if you're forming up with the whole brigade for some stupid flag ceremony, you got to be aware of that big picture, and you're part of a great cohesive, yay, flags, shave team. But then if you're just on a unit, an ODA, your little cell of doing whatever, you might be alone and kind of have to be aware of self, because that's all you have. But they're not mutually exclusive. I think they're definitely ebb and flow.
You know, man, I was actually thinking about that right before you jumped into the answer. But the question I was going to ask, well, no, it makes perfect sense. I was going to say, do you think that perhaps you dissociate at times in order to manage a task? And it reminds me of, you know, Shaun, you were talking about how you would offload processes, right? As you've done them enough times, you've just, okay, now cool, done. And they'll just happen without you really processing that you're doing all the steps, right? We were talking about CQB and you were like, holes would appear. You're not thinking about all your trigger squeeze and manipulations and all those things because they're offloaded. But I think that actually is a dissociation of a sort. So I was going to ask if that happens more often, or if that would be kind of along the lines, at least that's what I'm thinking Tanya's trying to get at, is that it's a time and place kind of thing.
100%. Well, and then it gets, I'll quote the director's cut of Black Hawk Down I watched last night. It was a scene they cut out where Eversman, the main kind of ranger character, he has a little speech about his friends saying, at what point, there's a point if this doesn't bother you, or no, I'm sorry, I was actually watching 12 Strong, an abomination if you're Green Beret, I'm aware. But if you're a civilian, it kind of got a good template. That's why I had Betty watch it. But there's a speech in there where the guy talks about, like, if you don't go home, and this is obviously talking about war and combat, but if you go home and don't have a lingering ickiness, you're no longer a human. You've lost your why you're choosing to do it. And then that's the level of dissociation, especially obviously combat's kind of an extreme, but if you dissociate to the point where that is all you live, eat, and breathe, you've lost your humanity. You know, there's dissociating from CQB and trigger squeeze and breathing and all that. That's just discipline. That's like training the machine. but dissociating an emotion to the point where it's dumped, like to be an emotionless creature, I don't advocate that that lifestyle.
Definitely not helpful in everyday life, that's for sure. And it actually kind of reminded me there are people that, by the end of my tour, at least, we had guys who were just like, let's just glass this place and be done with it, right? And it was a dissociation because you're doing it.
What's going to happen?
Yeah. But then once you get home, and then you have to reassociate with your own emotions.
Yeah. Well, and there's the great, I don't think there's an answer. I mean, we could go on a whole nother podcast.
Oh yeah.
2 hours on this, but like, that's why you saw in the end of Vietnam War videos, like they'd be on a patrol and he'd have a 60 up on his shoulder. He doesn't even care if they make contact, no human is meant to do some of these things for a duration amount of time without having, like you said, you might accidentally dissociate. And then sadly that inertia is there when that light switch goes from on off, but you're home, and then you have to reassociate. And therein lies the great rub of various jobs in the military.
It is a challenge for sure.
Well, you'd said inertia, and that's kind of important in respect to what you said, and Chance, and that's, well, let's just glass this place. You know what? The next thing that should have been said by someone who was a strong character or a strong man in that moment, it should have been this, bro, what's your big problem?
Yeah, this guy
what's up with your attitude?
Yeah.
And I get it, man. I get it. I get that, guys want to do things to solve the problem that sucks. And so there's many ways to skin that cat. And one of them is not, let's glass this place.
Yeah.
And so the idea being that when it comes to inertia, it as per physics, I mean, if you let that inertia continue, with a little bit of gasoline on that inertia fire, all of a sudden now there's 10 guys saying, let's glass this place. Yeah. Hey, let's frag the CO. Hey, let's whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And so that issue is a mega issue. And I don't think anyone should turn a blind eye to any casual comments like, hey, let's ... Irrespective of what's going on, those are moments where you should be pausing and think, hang on a sec. Have we gone off the rails here?
Well, and that's a greater comment, and this is not to be political, even though it could go in any genre of the existence right now, but that is, in this day and age, it's harder to be like, excuse me, I got a problem with this, because of what exists out there to counter that, if you're in the minority or otherwise. I mean, can you imagine if Martin Luther King existed in this day and age? Obviously, everything he said was right, and everybody can holistically believe in everything he thought. But now in this day and age, there's so many tools to counter a voice versus maybe 1 or 2 channels on ABC and the 2 main news channels at the time, if any. I don't think there might have been 1 at the time. So like, to be that guy to say, I'm new here, I'm only on my first or second rotation, let's not glass the place. But we know it happens. But being that voice, have you ever seen that meme where there's like a crowd of people and they're all doing something? There's this one guy just going like that. That takes more character, integrity, strength, and I guess willingness of risk to be that guy now.
Yeah.
I advocate it.
We talked about this, I think last week, and I brought up a picture from World War II Germany, or pre-World War II Germany, with the man that stands alone. And it's a famous photograph of Hitler going down a motorcade, like passing through a crowd, right? And everybody in the crowd had their hands up, the Heil Hitler, and there was one guy standing there like this.
I know the picture. Yep. Yeah.
And it, sometimes you got to be that guy. And to Sean's point, someone should have. No one did, and that was my issue. First off, that I didn't say it. I didn't even think about it. I was just kind of like, it was an offhand, like, oh yeah, let's glass the place. Okay, cool. But again, it's inertia, right? And that builds, and it also lends itself to a negative image once you come home, when you try and reassociate, because you've already
you've made
it bigger, right? So it makes it very, very much more challenging. Tanya's got another couple great points here. We only got a couple minutes left, but
we need to have her produce the show.
She really should. She'd be on here doing all the questions. Tanya, when I learned how movies get greenlit, I was amazed that any good movies even get made. Mission creep, egos clashing, investor notes galore, that kind of stuff.
I don't even have to speak long. I can just be
yeah.
Well, yeah, and all I'd like to say is good point, and there's not that many good movies being made.
Yeah, we really beat this to death last night on this nerd podcast, and yeah, it's all about money and egos and the sheer amount of risk now. I'll bastardize a quote super fast. Matt Damon was talking about how because there aren't DVDs and anything, everything's straight to streaming. The ratio of money put in to money needed out is so drastic now that they have to go for the quote closest thing to guarantees. Like this has to be a rock movie. It has to have one of the top 3 Pratt's, Rock, or whoever movie got stars, and we don't care about the story. We just need profit. And so they're never going to make a Godfather or a risky movie or a new movie. Like Air came out with the Michael Jordan movie. I guess it was awesome, but it will never be Black Adam or Captain America or whatever because they need guaranteed profit. So nothing's getting greenlit. And it sounds like a jaded wannabe actor, but as a fan, and Shaun was about to say the same thing before I rudely interrupted, like we're not getting good stuff. And it's for that reason. It's not.
You know what's funny? It's actually like Star Wars was a huge risk back in the 70s. That was a big risky movie that cost a ton of money and like no one thought was going to be successful, and it became this huge cult classic and then exploded from there. And it's I can't see anything as risky as Star Wars being put out.
Yeah, and it's ironic because almost like any athletic event, when the standards and quality get better, that then becomes the neutral standard. Yeah. You know, like if you look at sprinters from X generation to sprinters now, they're gods now. And that's the norm. You know, you could have been an Olympic athlete in the 60s, and that's a joke rate at the 100-meter dash.
High schoolers are beating you at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And so the standard ironically screws up the quality. You know, it's a weird duality.
It's interesting. We do have one more, and I want to hit this one because it's a great question, and I think it needs to be touched on, even if just for a few minutes. Tanya says, I feel like this show should be Tanya's today.
I was going to say.
She should be a guest. I don't know why she's just watching. She should have messaged me.
With Tanya.
Yeah. I feel like there's an uncanny valley between influencers, motivational speakers, and actual legit people. Why do you think people choose to believe they're legit? A lack of real legit role models, perhaps? What do you guys think? This is a big subject, and I think we'll do a whole podcast on this at some point. Yeah. But what's your first thoughts? What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I wanted to hear Shaun's. I think because of the social media that these platforms that all this stuff can be on, whether real, legit, fake, motivational creators, influencers, it allows snake oil salesmen to thrive. And as a result, the legit ones on the other end of the spectrum are going to be lumped into the same category, good, bad, or indifferent. And so everybody has a voice, and this speaks volumes to all sorts of topics, but everybody has a voice, right, wrong, or indifferent, good, bad, or ugly. And I think it's where you come from. Our legit motivational people in our lives, but despite the industry I want to be in, it wasn't Hugh Jackman telling me like how to struggle in Hollywood. I was like, oh, I remember the Batter the Bulge reading about these guys that had one pair of socks. That motivates me when I'm bitching and moaning about my poor feet, you know? So it's definitely relative. So I don't know. Your thoughts, Shaun? That's the shortest I can keep it.
What do you think, Shaun?
I'll try to keep it really short, which is almost impossible. But I will say this. Why do people choose to believe they're legit? Because they're not looking hard enough around them to see if they're legit.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
I mean,
they're not tested.
They're not testing themselves against a broader spectrum of people who they know are legit. Like, I don't have to kid myself. If I want to figure out if I'm a legit mountain biker, I look to subject matter experts like pros who are crushing it at the world championship level. And I can look at them and think, I'm actually not that legit. Yeah. And so it's choosing to calibrate yourself against legitimacy versus your own self-belief of legitimacy. And in order to do that, you got to expose yourself. That's hard.
Yeah.
Because once you start exposing yourself, it kind of sucks. Because then you don't believe you're legit anymore. And if you've built up your fan base or you've built it up in your mind that you're mega legit, and all of a sudden you realize, actually, I'm not a big deal. That's a hard place to be for some people. I like it, though. I like it when people realize that they're not that legit, because that's a great opportunity for them to get right with the program or not. And that's where the real growth is, as I see it.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking as I was reading this is that the reason people choose to believe they're legit is they don't know. They just don't know, and they're not willing to look. As you said, Shaun, they're just not they're not willing to reach outside of themselves to prove it otherwise. They just
for a variety of reasons.
For any reason.
Sheer laziness, as they're talking about how sheer legit they are, or sheer inability to face up to their own nonsense. The list goes on, but as I see it, the reality is they aren't facing up to their non-legitimacy.
Yeah. Well, I think we come from a world where there's less people keeping us accountable, where like we came from a world where, you know, a person can say, Jeff, you suck at shooting, get better. Now we are all in these isolated working remote jobs, internet, social media, podcasts, and all that, where we are our own calibration. You know, so if you're not self-aware, you can fool yourself and be, I'm a god at this.
Oh yeah.
And if you have enough silly people falling for your trick, it's just going to fuel that machine. I'm pretty sure I can say this. I will never currently up to this day say, oh, here's how you make it in Hollywood, guys, from my basement in Omaha. Like, that's a pompous moron. Like, that's asinine. So that's the self-awareness. Like you, Shaun, with the mountain biking, you're not going to say, hey, here's how to be a pro mountain biker like these people X, Y, and Z. You know where you are here, but if you want to be here, this is your new reference point. You're aware of that. And I think self-awareness is a big thing. Shaun or Chance touched on a little bit. People don't have that.
I was talking with my wife about this. We just had a couple long car drives down to the ranch and back, and we were discussing the fact that there's this concept nowadays that, you know, I've done something once or twice or 10 times or 15 times, but it was 15 years ago, right? Say, you know, you were a big Hollywood. What's that movie? It's called. It's about a boxer, left-handed boxer, comes back, the Princess Story, something like that. Not Southpaw. It's
Princess Diaries.
Not Diaries.
That's unimportant.
That's unimportant.
The point is
nearly 102.
The point is, yes. The point is that we are. He is a high-level professional boxer, makes tons of money, all kinds of great stuff, and the depression hits, and then he's got to go through being, you know, living in squalor with his kids in a one-room house, blah, 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 and he becomes a famous boxer again later. But the point of that that we were talking about was he could have sat there and been like, I was a champ. I was a champ, right? And you can say that all day long, every day. Cinderella Man. Thank you, Tanya. That's what it was. But that's a great story, great line, but it's a great thought process too, because you don't want to be that guy. You want to be the success story afterwards of like, I got to do it again, or I got to do something else, or I got to do something bigger, or I got to you get to continually grow.
Earn your day,
or
every day.
Exactly.
Period. Was, just like sucks, that. Is, and will be is better.
Correct.
100%. So last thoughts. We're over time again. Thank you to me, as I like to talk a lot. But Jeff, any final thoughts on what we've gone over today?
I've rambled enough.
Even if you want to talk about my beard, I'm okay.
I think a lot of it was self-awareness, perspective, and Chance needs to shave.
I think that's about it. Yeah, Shaun, what do you think?
Those are my 3 pearls.
And I think the closing piece on just this last little conversation that there's no way we can cover in one podcast, never mind 2, is it if you think that you're an influencer, or if you have people who are eyeballing you and kind of listening to some of the ideas that you might have, and you're feeling pretty good about that, but you're not doing it right yourself, man, it's a double bad, because you're faking yourself out, but you're faking a bunch of people out. Don't be a faker, because you'll pay the price sometime in the future. It's pay now or pay later. That's the way life works. So don't be a faker for yourself, but more importantly, don't blow it for the team by pretending to be something that you're not.
Yeah. And I got nothing to add on that, because that's fantastic. So I will end with the fact of, you know, as I learn how much people really don't like my beard, as I build my own self-esteem to manage how to shave here, but as I grow as a human being and have a general sense of myself, I do that here every day. And you can do that with us on The Collective. See y'all tomorrow.
Adios.
Chimo.